to Mr. Collier, it says density control on land assigned within the Fort Howard overlay the district. No more than, in our legislation, it was blank. No more than blank total dwellings are permitted, and these dwelling units shall be marketed as veteran only as provided in Bill 116, Human Relations Veterans. And to bring everybody up to speed, okay, Mr. Crandall, okay, January of 2016 created, okay, specific legislation to address, okay, the caveat of having a veterans-only community. There was no law in Baltimore County that allowed, okay, like for senior citizens to be created, like at Erickson's, Charlestown, assisted living communities, for it to only be veterans. So he created unprecedented and landmark, I add, and these are his words, okay, legislation. And this was supposed to be the tool that would allow, okay, what Mr. Collier was speaking about, okay, to make it completely a veterans-only community. So I hope that that addresses your concern.
Well, it does, and I understand that your community is heavily impacted, but there's other groups been fighting for this a long time, so I hope that everybody can work together to make this happen.
Well, and let me briefly mention here is that the mission statement, okay, of the Fort Howard Community Association is to preserve, enhance, and maintain the rural, historic, small town, Chesapeake Bay qualities and characteristics of Fort Howard. We are not a veterans advocate group. We are not anything more than a group that addresses the needs of the 21052, which is indeed the Fort Howard community. And I'm not trying to sound insensitive, okay, but the fact of the matter is, Mr. Collier, I think we have more than enough to deal with on our own as a small community without having to bite off and try and speak for other people in other communities.
Okay, well, Save Fort Howard's been working on this a long time, and just let me say, I actually highly respect you for all the work you're doing and what Kathy's done. I've spoke to many people that are involved down here. I have the greatest respect for all the work that you're doing. It's just there's other groups, and it's kind of hard to say, this is my ball and I'm running with it. I live in Dundalk, but my mother grew up in Todd's Farm. I've been coming down here since I've been a kid, and I have a great love and a great passion for this too. So I would like to be a part of this as well to help push this through if I can be.
Well, we're embracing many groups, Mr. Collier, just so that you know.
Just call me Scott, that's fine with me.
Okay, Scott. We have signed commitments. We have pieces of paper that have been signed, okay, by several, I'll use that term, several community groups, okay, notably, okay, Eastfield, Stansbrook, okay, has signed on to support any legislation, amendment, or stipulation that we introduce. North Point Village Civic Association has also signed letters. We've only mentioned those two because I think it would be unfair to show too much of our hand, but I'll share with you that we have over a dozen letters that are very inclusive of the larger community within this district. So I hope that satisfies your...
Well, you know that Al Classing had a great deal to do with this with Save Fort Howard, and we have Russ Donnelly here that is part of that group. So, I just want to make sure that we all work together to do this. I support everything you're doing. If you're doing it exclusively for veterans, you have my full support. But it's just kind of hard to say this is just my ball when there's a lot of other people that are involved and affected by this. So that's and I say, again, I have the utmost respect for you and Kathy for all the work that you're doing here.
I appreciate it. Mr. Donnelly, would you like to make a comment, sir?
Yeah, about the whole thing.
I'd like to give Mr. Donnelly the microphone.
Can you come up front, Russ?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Russell Donnelly. On behalf of Save Fort Howard, who I'm one of the executive coordinators of now since Alfred passed, he's still the leader. That's how it will remain. Some of you are at the other meeting that we just held on the 29th of June. But what we're trying to accomplish here is not only a housing development, because that's a short side of the stick. Right now, the veterans' services have been redacted. They have been swept from that property. The VA, I even have it in print from them, that it's no longer VA mission. Go to the developer if you want to ask questions. That's the problem. That's what we really have to get at. Houses are one thing, but one development of houses, even if it is for veterans, doesn't supply all the services and amenities and benefits they need and are due. In fact, they had before they were redacted and diminished by the VA and development. So that's the battle that I would like to ensue, and hope that all the groups involved, and Scott's group, Fort Howard Community Association, is the primary link in the chain for standing and everything else, because they are attached to the property. So if we can agree on all this stuff, it's not just a matter of houses that veterans can have and live in. We want their services back there for them too. It's more than just negotiating a development. It's the same thing going on with other battles right now, and I won't get into everything, centers and parks and other stuff being swept out from under. It seems to be, you end up arguing, just like the veterans in this case, arguing for scraps from your own table. Because in my estimation, unless I'm getting senile in my youth here, that under the Constitution, government of this country is everybody in this room, and every veteran that ever served owns that property, not the administration. They are exactly that, an administration, to administer to the wishes and the will of the veterans. Somewhere along the track, that message has been lost, and it's going on wholesale across this country. That's why there's this EUL thing is swept coast to coast. This is not one little battle, this is big. They're wholesale selling private, public property owned by the veterans, et cetera, or even people with the federal lands and state lands to private developers. It's a wholesale fire sale that's going on. And something's wrong with this, and we have to do everything we can, any way we can, to fight this trend and restore what the rights of the people, the veterans, et cetera. So that's the battle at large. And I just wanted to expand on that because it's not just the houses, it's about the services that were there. That's more important than the houses. So
we were hoping that at this point, okay, we've been able to turn over this microphone to one of our elected officials. However, we do not have that luxury tonight. Why, I don't know. I would like to make a personal comment here that all I've seen, okay, is, the fact that this community, which apparently is the host community of this development, seems to always be brushed off and not included, okay, in the talks. But legal provisions exist that allow, okay, another interested party to gain a minority or even a majority, okay, control of the existing enhanced use lease after it's been awarded to the current, okay, lessee. To that, I'd like to add, okay, Mr. Devin Crum, who's in the audience today from East County Times, did some investigative reporting and discovered, okay, through I believe it was the Veterans Administration, that there has been no amendment, okay, to the existing EUL lease, okay. Maybe some discussion, I think, might have been glossed, but essentially there is none. I can also share with you, okay, that we confirmed Mr. Crum's, okay, findings, okay, with a secondary source, okay, and we have it in writing, okay, that there has been no amendment, okay, and there would be an entire cascade of legal procedures, okay, and a whole cascade of signatories, okay, that would have to review and also approve, okay, this amendment. So it just can't be simply transferred, as you mentioned.
This Section 8 that has been referenced is evidently a bill brought to light by Mr. Kamenetz that requires a certain percentage of apartments and rentals to be given with no choice to Section 8.
The reason why we called this meeting tonight, okay, the purpose of this meeting tonight, okay, is over a recent introduction by our district councilman, Mr. Todd CRANDELL. Okay, it is called the Fort Howard Overlay District, Bill number 4816, I believe. Okay, the bill was introduced on July 5th. Okay, and today is part of the process that we're all going to go through. Okay, today we're having a public meeting. I must tell you that we were hoping, okay, that our elected representation would have been present here tonight to take any kind of questions or lay any kind of concerns that the people here had.
There's been a lot of concerns. We get a lot of phone calls in our office and everywhere I go. Todd, what's going on with Fort Howard? What are you going to do? So I'm going to be just real brief. We are the most patriotic community in this country. I believe that. We should honor our veterans, and we should have a place for them where that property was given to us for our veterans, and it needs to remain that.
So the question now becomes, why does not this property have the primest outpatient center? And again, these are more unanswered questions that I just thought I should bring to the table here. So, Mr. Jake Mokarovic, we have...
I just want to let you guys know, I got an email from Congressman Rupersberger's office, and in that email he says there'll be a new outpatient center. But they don't know where it's going to go yet, because the new center has to be bid out to prospective developers. And in that email it said one potential site might be out at Franklin Square Hospital, where they're building tons of new buildings. I just wanted to throw that into the mix as a point of information.
I have a question for Mr. Morovic. The deal was, it was supposed to be that outpatient clinic was built on site before any other construction or any other development. That was in the original agreement.
Okay.
What happened to that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just telling you what I got from Rupersberger's office saying there's plans for a new outpatient center, but not necessarily, it's not going to happen.
That's the way it was worded. It was supposed to be built within a close proximity to the gate entrance, so they wouldn't have to transgress the whole property to get to it, and they could do their but that was supposed to be up and running before any other shovels were turned on any other projects in there.
Okay.
This article appeared in the Sun paper, and it was written by Andrea K. McDaniels, and it was an interview she had with Mr. Rupersberger. And it says, the next step is a competitive leasing process, Rupersberger said in a statement when asked about the relocation of veteran services. So, is he looking for leased land, or, as he said, a new one to be built? Which is it? Is it one or the other? We don't know.
If it's happened, it wouldn't cost the government or the taxpayer a single penny if this guy followed what he was supposed to do. And that's another thing that he hasn't done. And I still think, and I have bad feelings about what's happened, the people that know what's happened, the cast of characters. No one's looked at this cast of characters. I think that there is a problem with what they're doing here, and that is tied in with this, because you look at developers, and the developers are going to get that, so now they get paid off here, they get paid off there, and I think it's in there, and I have a big problem with our congressman with the vets, because he's been in how long? He's done absolutely nothing for vets, and now there's another election, and he's cozying up to the vets and said, look what I'm going to give you, and I just don't think that it's, there's a very, very smell of fish involved in this. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of, it smells fishy to me, and I think
Rufus Boger and Mikulski both played that game.
Rufus is up to his elbows in this too.
They both played that game.
And I don't know if I can say this, but does everybody remember when he was county executive? What did he try to do? He tried to take all that property from people in Essex under eminent domain and give it to developers. And here he's involved with developers again. And not one person has looked into that. And I'm telling some of these people to start looking into the people that are involved in this and their backgrounds. There's some shady characters involved in this. I know 3 of them that's involved in some of this stuff, and one of them was involved in a savings and loan scandal with Jeffrey Levitt and a couple other ones. So I think they ought to start looking.
Well, Mikulski was one of the initial ones that started the ball rolling down here for this development and everything, run all the VA out of there. That was all part of her concoction.
He said, we'd like to have veteran services. Let me share with you, just on that closing note, okay, that after the VA closed the outpatient center, and this is the last point I'll make, we're going to leave. After they closed that, we contacted Barbara Mikulski's office and spoke with them for 3 weeks, okay? First off, the VA made a public statement that it was closed and would reopen. It sent letters to veterans. Is that true, Mr. Labuto?
Yes.
And they received letters saying that it was closed and it would be reopened. However, okay, our investigation showed, okay, that it was closed permanently. And I was actually even chastised, okay, by several veterans saying, I have a letter saying you're wrong. When in reality, okay, there was some confusion at the VA, because the reality was, it wasn't temporarily closed, it was permanently closed, okay? Now that's unremarkable. What's more remarkable is that it's in the enhanced use lease that a state-of-the-art 11,000 square foot brand new outpatient center was to be built there in consideration for care for veterans, okay, and in lieu of any payment that was to be given, okay, to the VA in exchange for that property, okay. And what we did was, is we stated that we approved of 033, which is the issue of the Fort Howard Veterans Park. And what they're going to do there is, it's currently, I think, zoned for residential 5.5, meaning you can build 5.5 residences per acre. What we said was we'd like to have an overlay on that, okay, called a neighborhood commons overlay. And that's fine. We said that's great. There was another one called 048, and this is where it gets a little dicey here. I haven't quite figured this out, but it includes 2 separate pieces of property. It includes the property owned by Baltimore County, which is the Dyke area, and the Fort Howard Park,
3 pieces.
excuse me, and it includes, okay, a separately deeded property, okay, which is owned by the VA, which is the VA campus hospital campus. And we're asking ourselves, why was it not a third issue? Because it's obviously 3 different, properties. We have an explanation for that. One thing we know is that nowhere in this legislation that was introduced by Mr. Crandall does it state that the park area and the dike will be a neighborhood commons, which was our all-the-time assumption that it would be. Lastly, I'd like to close on the point that we're going to go on Thursday to the legislation hearing, okay, called the work session. And if there is anything now that you disagree with that we're going to advance, I'd like to hear that opposition. Otherwise, we're going to move forward with a assumption, not even assumption, okay, the tacit, okay, instruction here, that your silence is basically an approval that you agree with everything that we're trying to put forth, okay, here. So if there are no contentions, and this is your time to raise them, okay, if there's none, when we go to the session on Thursday, we're going to move forward with advancing these interests. Does anybody have any questions about what again, I apologize. Our highest expectations were that this community of Fort Howard, where the Fort Howard Overlay District will be implemented, would have had input, okay, and interaction with the person introducing that legislation, Mr. Todd Crandell. But again, because of him being, I guess, in Washington, D.C. today, he was unable to attend and speak to you and answer your questions personally. Because of the fact that we will not have an opportunity, okay, to speak to him with this forum prior to the August 1st vote. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I think it'd be good to send a letter to Governor Hogan from the Community Association, let them know what's going on.
I agree.
I work for the VA. The last I heard is they're talking about an outpatient center on Merritt Boulevard. That's what I was talking to somebody that runs the shuttles for the out, I mean, they're just talking about it, there's nothing definite, that's what I've heard.
So if we were to draft, okay, a letter,
Let
okay,
them know the things that have gone on, you know.
to Mr. Hogan, Governor Hogan,
Yeah,
that is,
I would send him a letter.
and articulate, okay, this timeline, is what you're saying, of what's transpired down here for
And there's
what?
no oversight, there's nobody, these people are doing what they want and getting away with it,
Okay.
you know.
Well, I
Would
have,
everybody like, yes, sir. The confusion lied with us is that in the CZMP process, there are issues that were brought up, they're called issues. These issues are assigned numbers, and these issues, okay, are then, if for lack of a better word, legislated, okay? Now, the Fort Howard Park has a zoning, an underlying zoning of residential. What we're saying is we want to increase prohibition on that property up there so that it cannot be used, okay, for, okay, residential usage. The property over here, okay, is Rural Conservancy, I believe is what it is, 20, which means that only one house can be built on 20 acres, okay? The contention here is why was 048 one of only 2 issues in Fort Howard, inclusive of the RC20, which is owned by Baltimore County, and it was also including, okay, the veterans property, which is a separate title and a separate zoning of 5.5. It appears to us it would have been more sensible to make it another standalone issue with its own number, because it raised a lot of confusion, because when we originally asked, why is the Veterans Administration being downgraded to a neighborhood commons, the reply we got from the councilman's office was that it was just a mistake. And now what we're finding out is that in reality, they're introducing an overlay, which could not be introduced had not the issue been attached to the property. But it appeared that it was going to be a neighborhood commons overlay, not, okay, a overlay district, okay, for what was proposed in this legislation. Now, of course, I'm just as confused as anyone else. But the question still does arise. Why was it not a third issue incorporated in the CZMP? Did they run out of numbers? I don't know.
If you go back and look under the auspices and the guidelines and the basic criteria for how a property from the VA or any other federal agency gets put up for EUL, it already raises major questions. Because guess what? With the historic pedigree on that property, right now, what they did, even back in 2000, was a major violation against the National Heritage Protection Act and other federal auspices. It should have never, with its pedigree and its historical significance alone, not counting anything else, it should have never been put up as an EUL. And it says it very clearly in the regulations. So that's a major question.
One last thing to his point too is in that meeting, okay, that Mr. Signorale, okay, attended. I don't know how realistic or probable it is, but he said it's possible that a prison could be built here if the lease was terminated, and that the property was given back to the VA and then it was turned over for disposition by sale. I can only share with you that the likelihood of that from our perspective is very small, because you can't eliminate the historic district that exists, because that's governed underneath of the historic preservation of 1966. So they might be able to build a prison, but it'll be a very historic prison that they build. So with that, okay, yes, so one more question for Mr. LaGuardia.
Thursday,
2 o'clock.
I would put forth a motion to table the vote on that until the councilman has a chance to address your association.
Okay, what Mr. Sloboda has suggested is that we put forth a motion at the work session that the councilman table this legislation until he
Has time to come meet with your association.
has time to come and meet, okay, with the host community of Fort Howard and address this with all the residents. And with that, I would like to close our meeting. Thank you.
I have a petition online already about Fort Howard. It also deals with the bullying in schools, so that's online to Governor Hogan. It also deals with things such as the North Point Government Center, so you can get more people more inclusive. So I already have a petition. Kathy signed it already. I'll send it to you again.
And we will move forward on Thursday with the assumption that you consent with what we're doing here And with that, I'll let the close. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.